about it where I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, you have no idea what's going on in my brain. There's so much going on in here. You do not want to be in here.
Just taking the medication, there's research out too for all kinds of other things. Just taking medication, you're not changing things. You're helping for sure, but you also want to do all the other things as well.
Oh, today we are talking about ADHD. Hi, I'm Shannon Passalacqua, and I am a certified high performance coach, and I help women heal after miscarriages.
And I'm Heike Fallon, and I'm a personal high performance coach. And I help my clients to really manage themselves better so they can be better leaders. And um, I really love this topic, love that we're talking about because we're going to share some strategies as well today. But particularly because it's oftentimes thought it's just kids, right? We always hear it's just the kids. But, and I do have, young adults as well as clients, but there's also a lot of adults that are in any age having to manage how they are, and ADHD is still there. It's not
Mhm.
going away. It's usually more how we manage it. And yeah, so I'm excited. We're going to dive into this because there's still a lot of unknown, but there's also some things
Mhm.
we do know. And so we'll love to get different perspectives.
Yeah.
And also, we're going to go a little bit into which I'm also more exposed to is where it overlaps with other conditions and where it's kind of blurry lines. Is it ADHD? Is it not
Mhm.
ADHD? Is it
Is
something?
it both? Is it a
Is it both?
combination?
So I think
Yeah.
that's super interesting. So we'll probably not solve the world today. We wish we would, but give
Yeah.
different perspectives, and you have experience as well.
Mhm.
And so we'll hopefully give our viewers and listeners, a different perspective on and ways to maybe think in certain other
Mhm.
ways.
Yeah, I have a son with ADHD. I have a husband with ADHD. So it is very prevalent in my life. I keep questioning whether or not I have it. I'm not sure. Um, but they do say that it is genetic. And usually, if you have a child with it, at least one of the parents has it. So there, I think it's like, you guys, I'm bad with numbers, but it's either like 40 or 60% of kids who have it, their family members have it too. Their parents have it. Um, I have a lot of friends who have children with ADHD. And I think one of our frustrations that we see happening right now is people keep claiming, oh, it's overdiagnosed, or we just need to have our kids out in nature more, or, and while these things may be true, my kids and my friends' children spend a lot of time outdoors, and they still have ADHD. So, I mean, some of that may be true, but we still need to talk about the fact that our kids have ADHD and we still need to support them in the best way possible. And we had our son going to a therapist who specialized in ADHD, and she gave us a lot of tools to help. And we've discussed a lot of tools that are helpful. Um, and we needed to also have him on ADHD meds because he was not able to focus in class, and it was going to tank his um, self confidence. And that was one of the turning points for us of, okay, maybe we do need to get him on meds, because when we talked about it with his pediatrician, it was the percentage of children who have ADHD who aren't supported. Their self-confidence goes down, their addiction goes up, their depression goes up, their anxiety goes up. So it is all related. And so we wanted to support him in the best way possible. And for us, that meant giving him tools and also giving him the medicine that helps with, I think it's related to, I think there is some dopamine.
Yep. As is related to altered dopamine release. But I love that you saying, like, because people ask me often, so what do you think? Should I take some medication for that? Get a shot for my knee injury or something? And um there's no good answer. So
No, there
generally
isn't. You
speaking,
have to do what's best for you.
I say try to make a lot of changes first, lifetime change, lifestyle changes, um, change your structure or change your do exercises. And there's some exercise that help with ADHD as well. I'll talk a little later about that. But y- y- just taking the medication, there's research out too for all kinds of other things. Just taking medication, you're not changing thing. You're helping for sure, and it might be needed for sure, but you also want to do all the other things as
Mhm.
well. And if you only do medications, you're not creating any other long-term changes. If you just doing the lifestyle changes and implementing different behavioral structural things, you may not get the full result that you need at the moment, and it's not enough, and you might need to add medication. But the key
Mhm.
is always to continue and evaluate, do I still need to be on the medication? Do I need to change maybe what I'm doing, or am I already doing everything I can and maybe I can get off the medication? Maybe I need to start taking medication. And it's a fine
Yeah.
line, very individual, absolutely no judgment.
Yeah.
I
No, and I
always
love
say
the way you
just
put that.
reevaluate from time to time and make sure that you explore all areas, medication,
I
non-medication.
I love the way you put that and the way you phrase it, and it reminds me of my own hormone, like going through perimenopause. Like I figured out that I was going through perimenopause. I knew some of the lifestyle changes I needed to make, and I changed all of that. I did all the lifestyle changes, the diet, the supplements, da, da, da. And I still needed support with hormone replacement therapy. And I still continue to do the lifestyle changes, and they work together. I need them all to go together. And they help support each other. And I think that is very similar with ADHD. They support each other.
Yeah.
And at some point, some of that may change. You still need to fine tune everything, right? There's always like some sort of fine tuning that's going on. Um, and you need to keep working with that.
Yeah, and let's just jump in a couple strategies that may help. So I'll
Okay.
love to bring in a little bit more, like you said, nature. Yes, nature is a good thing, and you don't know how it would have been if they wouldn't be in nature. Nature is a good thing, but also particularly because our visual system is very important too of how our mind function and our thoughts function. So if when we're outside and we have more of that space and the peripheral vision, that can oftentimes help us to calm down. Especially nature is known to calm us down, the nervous system, calm it down. So it's very good to be sometimes outside and really move, and movement is another big one.
Mm-hmm.
Because how we activate different areas like the cerebellum and different other aspects of the brain, which also feed into the frontal cortex, where more our thinking is. So if the thinking is all over the place, oftentimes specific movements can help. So walking or being outside and being active outside, that also includes exercising, is important. That doesn't always have to be the vigorous, you know.
Well, what I think is interesting, what our therapist told us, which I see true in my own son. I don't know if this is true across the board, but I do know I've seen it true with some kids, is that different sports are really good for kids with ADHD. So my son playing baseball, that was not it. Like it was not enough stimulation for him. Soccer was awesome. Keeps him going. She even suggested like ping pong because you're using the different, like there's a lot of eye coordination, hand-eye coordination. It's keeping your brain going. Swimming is really good. But those sports where you have downtime, like baseball, I don't know, maybe golf. I don't know. I'm just thinking like
Yeah.
those are the
No,
sports I'm thinking of.
and everybody's different, but you're right. And it's like I said, oftentimes ADHD comes also with the vestibular, so your inner ear not functioning at its best, but that can be trained. So a lot of the people tend to also choose the sports that require a lot more vestibular stimulus, which is like anything where you have direction changes and up and down. So the running in different directions, spinning, all that activates the vestibular system. And that's also the reason why, ADHD is also known for you being like that, feel hyperactive because they need to keep moving, but it's because when you're moving, you're also activating the vestibular system, and it's also a natural thing to try and to activate that more, and so that's why they're moving more. So I've worked also with a long time ago with some kids on actually training the vestibular system more precise, because we can now know how we train which canal which way, and you can do more precise brain-based exercise for the vestibular system in order to what we call have rehab exercises for it. So you can do vestibular training, which again won't solve the whole problem.
Right.
Not one thing will solve the problem magically, but it can be a really good tool to do specific vestibular training besides actively participating in sports, to train that and help with being able to sit still for a little longer periods of time and not needing naturally that extra stimulus. Now, again, not just one thing that will solve it. Just
Right. But do you have an example of one?
Yeah, for example, one is like to train the horizontal canals. I'm going to look at my camera here right now. So you can just, if you turn your head that way, it activates the right horizontal canal. And if I'm turning to my left, doing this, my eye staying on the spot, I'm training my left horizontal canal. Now, what we do usually, you want to have them assessed, right? We have the canals, and we do have other organs in there, that measure the up and down and back and forth movement, the others. So we want to assess them and see, because oftentimes it's, just more on the left side, that's when you sometimes see people always tilting in their head too. They might be trying to stimulate the left.
As I tilt my head.
left, yeah, the ones that see, it's kind of funny because a client I've had in my office too with the when you know, I'm like, oh yeah, your left side. I'm like, is it yeah, I'm like, oh, I'm always standing like that in all the family photos. But that aside, so you want to assess it, right? And that's the cool part. We can assess that now, and with that as well, the vestibular system, so the inner ear, also works directly with your eyes together. They neurologically really, really tight connected. So a lot of vision exercises can help too. So particularly, just a straight gaze or a pencil push-up. Oh, I got a pen
So
here.
I listened to something on Andrew Huberman. I know he's controversial every once in a while, but he was talking about that, and either looking at like a flame on a candle, which obviously I'm not going to have my ADHD kid around a flame by himself. But he also said a pencil. If you just stare at it.
Yep. You are actually, your eyes focus, right? And what you kind of cutting down on the peripheral vision, you focus right here, which also can help you to, in general, focus your thoughts, your mind, and has also, so activates the cranial nerve 3, because looking inside with the eye. So if you're at eye level is cranial nerve 3, which is activating part of the brainstem, which can also help calm your overall system down, but it also can, when you're so all over the place, can help you to focus in the moment. Now, oftentimes, with these type of exercises, you don't want to do them the first time when you're in the
Right. It's like meditation, right? Like you don't want to just sit down and try to meditate when things are difficult. You need to prepare.
It needs some practice. So you want to practice those type of exercises throughout when you're feeling pretty good, so that your system knows what it does and has a positive memory of that, and then you can actually do that in moments of, but point is, these are strategies and exercise we can do. Again, it won't fix it in itself, but that can be good. Other thing is definitely
question. Sure. Really quick, sorry, does that work for everyone?
anyone even without ADHD will need
That's what I'm
that.
wondering. Because
Yes,
here's what
yes,
I'm wondering. In the
yes,
classroom, I'm just thinking as
yes,
a former teacher,
yes.
if children are about to sit down and take a test or a quiz or whatever, whatever. I wonder if it would be beneficial if a teacher was like, hey, we're going to take the next 30 seconds and just stare at our pencil.
Yes, and we've done that at our elementary school because we did implement that way before pandemic. So I've actually gone in and taught a couple things that can help. That's why also this is another strategy that people do, not just for ADHD, but also when they're more stressed or anxious, they chew gum. And it
Yes.
has to do with the cranial nerves you activate. So that can be other strategies. If you, it's also a sign that maybe you should train something else, because if you're already naturally going for that and always chewing gum, you might want to train a couple other areas as well. But it can be a strategy to focus better. And so for ADHD, that might be an option too, to chew gum. Again, not solving the problem and not for everybody. You gotta, it's everybody's different. There's nobody alike. So it's always needs to be tried out, see what works for you. And then you figure out what is the best strategy for you.
And I do want to say, I can't remember if we said this earlier. We are going to have a follow-up
Yeah.
video about this, about how to work with our children and possibly our spouses with ADHD, and different tools that we can use, and all the different strategies as living someone who lives with it
Yep.
and is immersed in it, how we can best support them and how we can best support ourselves, because it's
Yes.
not easy to always be
Yeah.
surrounded with.
Yeah. So, and by all means, I don't know exactly how it feels, obviously being in the situation, but it's not that far off from other things. And it's just a matter of really trying out different strategies and trying to implement different, acknowledging where the challenges are, and then implementing strategies. Another big one is the environment. Our environment impacts our brain and how we function, all of us. But if you have ADHD, it can be even more important to keep the environment very simple, cleaned up. So it's because if our brain isn't as structured, if the environment is a clutter mess, it's not possible to, or it's much harder to actually focus and be structured and think structured. So if we keep the environment more simple, more clean,
Which is interesting, because from the people I know with ADHD,
they don't.
they don't. They have their, like, what I call doomsday piles. Like, like
I
their
like
way
that.
of cleaning is,
Yeah.
I'm just going to make a pile,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to have this pile over here, and then I'm going to clean. I'm going to put this pile over here.
Yeah. And
So there's no cleaning.
now, but that's why it's a challenge, right? Because and the environment matters, but it's so hard to keep the environment in the way that it matters. But knowing just environment matters may help to understand, like, to figure out strategies how to do it. Either like, hey, I do it and that comes back to habit formings, right? We can
Yeah.
form habits the same way as we brushing teeth in the morning. We can clean up a certain area in the room, or make sure our desk is clean, ready for work, or make it a habit after each day at work, getting the desk in the shape that it needs to be successful the next day, whatever it be for the people watching here. But the key is the environment does matter. And the more unstructured and cluttered the environment is, the more it does have an impact, and particularly on people that are already struggling to stay focused.
Well, that makes sense, because there's already so much stuff going on in their head. To have more stuff going on in their environment, I mean, that makes sense, that you'd want to at least have something in them that is controlled, I guess, and ordered. What I find interesting is, and I've talked about this a lot with a couple of my friends who have their children with ADHD, is that kids with ADHD are 30%, I don't know how to word this correctly, are social emotionally behind their peers by 30% because there's so much going on in their head that they are not able to take in all the stuff going on around them and to see the cues and to keep up with the um, social emotional aspects of life. And so I have a 12-year-old, but let's say I had a 10-year-old because that's easier math for me. But if he's 30% behind his peers, that means when he was 10 years old, he was acting like a 7-year-old
Mhm.
because he was not able to keep up like his peers. And I think that is, as a parent, that's really important to keep in mind when I'm parenting him, because he's 12 now, but he's not 12. I mean, he's 12, but socially, emotionally,
Yeah.
I need to remember that he can't always do the things that I would expect a 12-year-old to do.
Yeah.
You know, there are still some prompts that I need to give him, or it's like it's interesting, and we'll talk about that more later, but like it's interesting how I parent him and how I parent my other son.
Yeah, no, and it has to do all with input to the brain and how it can be processed and in which way it gets processed. And again, everybody different. Not everybody is necessarily 30% behind.
Right, its average is
That's
30%.
the thing. Like I think that's a hardest thing that usually with my
Yeah,
clients to understand. I'm like, yes, these are all like research that's been done. That's the average, but there's nobody alike. Like somebody
that's
might,
average.
yeah, there's somebody maybe 40%, maybe
Mhm.
10%. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just, it's so individual, and that's why I highly recommend always see a healthcare professional for sure, and then also have assess what you can assess to kind of see and the progress and what you need to work on. So for the social components, what is something to that would help better? Is it like trying more smaller groups rather than the bigger groups?
well,
Is
I
that
do know
helpful?
that he does not like big groups. He doesn't feel comfortable in a lot of noise. He would rather have a one-on-one situation than a big situation. But also just um telling him what to expect. Like, first of all, like preparing him for what's going to happen, and then he knows. And like his morning routine is written down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have it written down so that he has a checklist to go through every morning, because me in the morning, I can remember I need to do all these things. Right. I get up. I have like such a routine, and there's no very like I
Yeah.
know what I'm going to be doing. I remember that I'm supposed to brush my teeth, and that I need to do all these things. My son is like, he knows, he gets up, he eats breakfast, and then he's going to get distracted walking back to his bedroom.
Yeah. So
I
it's
mean, I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten with his bowl of cereal done walking to his bedroom instead of bringing it to the kitchen because he's just distracted. And it's
yeah.
like, dude.
Yeah, no, it's but it is, and that's what I'm always saying. It's just to understand we all, no matter what we have going on, we all have certain strengths and we have certain challenges that we need to work on. And everybody has different ones. And it's not bad to have cheat sheet lists or,
Right. No, it's so
like
beneficial.
no matter who we are and what, not just ADHD, it's other people too that have other we'll talk in a minute about it, how it overlaps. It's about recognizing, hey, you know what, I'm really good at this, but I
Mhm.
need to work really harder in order to function well throughout the day on my morning routine or whatever it be, and writing it down, making a clear structure for ADHD, that is super important. more than possibly other people.
Mhm.
But they have their other challenges, and they need to work on their things. So it's not like,
Yeah.
you're so different. We all have something.
I mean, the thing with kids with ADHD, or I mean, like the benefits I can see for my son is he is so inventive. Like he can do so many things. His brain just works in such a different way than mine. And I'm like, dude, that is amazing that he can do that. Like he just shines in so many different areas that, yeah, he has ADHD, but there's also these things that he's going to be really good at.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's not like, oh my God, your brain is broken or you can't, you just, there's certain things, yes, we all need to learn, and certain ones we're really good
Mhm.
at. And they tend to, people with ADHD, and also overlapping again with other things like, highly cognitive people, highly
Dyslexia. My
yes.
son also has
We're gonna
dyslexia.
go through a list soon, but stay tuned. I got a whole list here.
Oh, you have a list.
I wrote
Okay.
it down because it's so many things that overlap that I was actually fascinated by it. So I got geeked out on it a little bit. But because I also get oftentimes, well, Heike, do you think it's ADHD? I'm like, oh, it's a tough one, right? Because it overlaps so much. But let's talk about two more things that I think
Okay.
are super important for strategies on managing your ADHD is sleep. Gotta have good sleep.
Yeah, and that was a huge one that our therapist was like, he has to get. So like he goes to sleep earlier than most of his friends because I'm like, you need more sleep than
Yep.
like, and it takes him longer to fall asleep.
Yep. So sleep, I think, is a huge one. Maybe tracking it, right? I'm tracking my sleep with a
Yeah,
Oura ring or like a Fitbit,
yeah,
Apple.
yeah. We just got him a watch.
Tracking the sleep to really fine tune that. And then I think one other big one is diet.
So okay, I'm going to cut you off because I just listened and did I read? I can't remember. Can't remember his name. Anyway, a doctor who talked about helping kids with ADHD, less carbs, more protein, which I mean we say for everything, right? You need more protein and less carbs. But like my son goes to carbs. Like he eats carbs like they're going out of style. But he also will eat a hamburger for every meal. Like it's like that child needs, I don't know if he needs protein. I don't know if he needs, I don't know, iron. I don't know, but he I just think it's interesting. It's like carbs, I think are a
So I think that, like I said, diet is a challenge because it's so individual. Again, you need to really customize it for
Mhm.
you. Generally speaking, carbs aren't bad,
Right.
right?
Nope.
That's the one
Carbs are
big
not
thing.
bad.
Like, it's not cutting out all carbs. Our
Right.
brain needs carbs. And
Right.
teenagers, where the brains are still growing and going really,
Crazy.
like, they are not, they're growing. There's so many extra connections that will eventually chop down. It's called pruning. Um,
Mhm.
they need more carbs than adults, so to separate that, right? So
Oh.
more, because of the brain does need carbs, not so the no carb thing
Yeah, no, I don't. I went for
is
that for a while and now
that's
I've
a
learned.
that's a
I'm like,
challenge. But here's the thing: is it depends on what kind of carbs, right? Is it,
right.
processed food, or is
I
it
mean, he loves processed food. We try not to keep it, but he loves processed food. But he again, we know we need to have
so
a healthy diet.
So I think it really depends on what kind of carbs am I putting into me. Is it like, carbs from real food, and or is
Yeah.
it processed food? I think a big one, though, in general, to say sugar has shown to make a huge
Mm.
impact on a lot of different things. Because yes,
Can-
go
I
for it.
just talked I, I just talked about this with someone. It wasn't sugar, it was red dye.
Mm.
And if you've ever known someone with ADHD and you've seen them eat red dye, you know what I'm talking about. The moment it hits his system, it's like, it's almost amazing to watch. Like any scientist should just watch it happen. He goes, I mean, it's just, it just, I can't even explain it. He just goes out of control. And I mean, the amazing what red dye can do to your system and what it does, especially to someone with ADHD. I don't know if it's an allergy, specifically, or if it's just red dye is not good for you. And there's red dye in so many things, and it'll be in his system. We can tell for at least 24 hours.
Oh yeah. Things
And
usually
we know if he has red dye, we're preparing ourselves. So, like during Christmas time or during Valentine's Day, we are very observant and very cautious as to what he puts into his body because it is absolutely amazing to watch and it's really hard.
yeah, no, so it's and to clarify too, I'm talking when I'm talking sugar, I mean mainly also the, cane sugar,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We don't allow
not
sugar
fruit,
either.
not fruit sugar, like you can
Yeah, fruit sugar is good. We like
sugar
fruit
is
sugar.
different than I'm talking about the refined sugar, the one that's in the cookies and cakes
Yeah.
and yes, food coloring there's research that that is definitely impacting. And again, everybody's differently sensitive.
Yeah, my other son doesn't affect him at all, but we still
Yeah,
don't keep it
so
in the house.
but if you not sure or you haven't explored it, pay attention to how you respond to different food. I was just sharing before we started recording that my sleep is impacted depending on what dinners I have and what time my dinner is. And it's crazy how much impact food has on our system, and we can absolutely influence a lot. There are also tests now available to figure out more the detailed of our gut function. That needs to be done usually by a nutritionist. Actually, you can watch too. We recorded some episodes about gut function, so that is a big player too when we're talking ADHD. Is you want to optimize your gut function,
Mhm.
essentially, is what it is. So, um, definitely, I don't know. Did we cover mostly? Obviously, we didn't go as deep in right now. Time management, keeping small,
Well, and we can go into that
yeah,
in the episode when we're
yeah, so smaller steps, all that kind of stuff. But let's talk about, which I find very fascinating, is how ADHD really overlaps with other things. So, for example, people that are highly cognitive functioning, so ones that are usually academically maybe a
Mhm,
bit above the average,
mhm.
have oftentimes their brain is wired differently. And so
Yeah,
they do struggle with things like that are similar, like not being able to clean up their breakfast or, like thinking they did, but they didn't, and leaving milk out or what have you.
because they're distracted. There's things that
Well,
are
I
much more
think
important
it's
going on
not
in
so
their brain.
much the interesting part. It's oftentimes not distractions from the outside. It's
No,
their
it's
own
going on in
brain. They
there.
start
Mhm.
thinking about really cool stuff. As you said, they are very
Yeah,
innovative and creative.
yeah.
That is really mind blowing how amazing they are. And but they're constantly thinking,
Yeah.
and that constantly thinking about the world and different things occupies them just so
Mhm.
much that they sometimes neglect just the general things that they may need to take care of. But
My husband, I have
so
to
what I want to say is the highly cognitive functioning people um, may have also behaviors that could be overlapping with ADHD, even though some of them do have also ADHD, but some of them don't. But they do have tendencies in that direction. And it can be, that's why it can also be sometimes, as we talked about, so many people get diagnosed, but is it really ADHD or is it symptoms or behaviors showing up that are overlapping with different conditions? Did you want to say something to that? Because otherwise I'm going,
well, my husband and I always joke about it where I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, you have no idea what's going on in my brain. There's so much going on in here. You do not want to be in here. Like, I don't like,
So
how do you just walk in the house and not see anything? And he's like, there's two.
yeah, so but even people that are extremely sleep deprived can have behaviors that kind of
Oh.
show up. If you really sleep, I'm talking really sleep
Yeah.
deprived, they can have a hard time focusing, staying on track, being distracted easily, where it overlaps again with
Can I interject? I find that really interesting because a lot of women in their late 40s, early 50s during perimenopause and menopause are diagnosed with ADHD. And I do think that maybe they do have ADHD, but I wonder if some of it is because they are sleep deprived because we lose so much sleep during that time.
yeah, or hormone changes.
Right. Yeah, hormone
And
changes
and
and
then and then the question is, do we address the behavior and symptoms of ADHD that might pop up, or do we address
adjust
maybe
the hormones.
other things like the hormones
Hmm.
or the sleep? And
Hmm.
so that's where it gets really murky, and it's
Yeah,
very hard to go pinpoint. We all want a clear answer, but
I
sometimes
know.
sometimes there's just not one clear answer. It really requires a lot more self-awareness, more analyzing your situation. But sleeping is definitely if anybody who slept like for a long time, not good nights. Now, I'm not talking about the 1 or 2 nights not sleeping well. We're talking about prolonged not
Yeah.
sleeping well. Um,
What about anxiety?
learning disabilities can
Yeah,
absolutely overlap there. They might be other learning disabilities,
my son has dyslexia.
and so you that doesn't mean it's ADHD, but it can overlap in as far as how it looks like. Bipolar disorder, sensory
Autism.
autism, exactly, sensory processing disorder, which is on the spectrum there too.
Hmm.
Those things, autism, you just said it. Traumatic brain injuries too. If somebody had a traumatic brain injury, that can be memory loss, it can be hard to focus, that kind of thing. So again, there's an overlap. Thyroid disorders, so which I yeah,
Oh,
so definitely we want to do get a full blood panel. Just I always say to my clients too, is just eliminate. Go get blood
yeah.
tests and eliminate, okay, how are your thyroid hormones? Are they in balance? Is that all functioning well? But it is possible that can have
So,
behaviors or symptoms showing up that kind of mimic ADHD.
and in females,
Mm-hmm.
from what I've read, anxiety,
Yeah, that
it can present as anxiety, but it's ADHD.
correct. And that's a good, that's for all of these. It can be ADHD and it shows up and you think it's that, or it can be
And it turns out, yes,
so yes, anxiety is one, depression is one. So which one is it in which direction? Hard to tell
right.
sometimes, right? So yes, anxiety and depression are definitely part of that. Uh, post-traumatic stress disorder, again,
Mm,
it's also again comes back down to, oftentimes a lot of these things, their sympathetic system is overly ramped up, and we need a
mhm.
whole lot more calming down, and that can be all of these have components of that, and then symptoms overlap, and it's hard to say which one is it. So
Well,
often
and I do think it's amazing how there's usually a dual um, diagnosis. Like my son has ADHD and dyslexia, and oftentimes there's more than one.
yeah, and at the end, yeah, and then so let's see, my list here. Obsessive compulsive disorder falls,
OCD. Hmm.
OCD falls into that. Obviously, also substance abuses. So I mean, alcohol, we know we're not thinking as straight. It does impact the brain, and it may cause us not to be able to focus, or, being more impulsive,
Hmm.
which is part of ADHD as well. Um, so
Yeah, kids with ADHD have a higher chance of having alcoholism or being addicted to drugs which was, again, like I said, one of the reasons why we decided to put him on medicine. So we could teach him how to work through all that.
Yeah. And then chronic stress. Like if you're constantly stressed, you're always in the fight and flight mode.
Yeah.
You might be more impulsive, you might be more irritable, you might be more, all over the place.
They
So,
say that new moms or moms who are chronically stressed present with ADHD, but it's probably just their stress.
yeah, so there's this list is probably not fully complete, but there are a lot of other um conditions
Overlapping.
that really overlap in the symptoms. It's hard to say sometimes which one is which one. At the end of the day, though, really analyzing what are the things you're struggling with, particularly because everybody's different, and working on them. And considering, though, that sleep, diet, a structured day, and habits have a huge
Movement.
and movement. So, yep, thank you. And movement have a huge impact, and start there. And then,
It's interesting that everything we talk about deals with sleep, diet, movement.
yeah, it is, because that's what we need to survive. That's what our brain, our system needs for optimal functioning.
Yeah.
And
Don't do it enough.
yeah, and eliminating, that's going to be my last comment for today. Eliminating things that are not serving us, maybe restricting screen time, maybe setting more healthy boundaries. We did a whole episode on healthy boundaries, right? So really analyzing who you are. And I mean, that's what I do as a coach, right? I'm helping my clients lead themselves better, meaning to really analyze, what do I need to work on? Where's my struggle? What can I do in improving that, and creating a plan on implementing different habits, behaviors. Mindset matters, knowing that you're not broken or anything. You can work on different things. You can manage your situation a whole lot better when you implement particularly those areas we just said: the sleep, the diet, the structure, the exercising. Will it solve the problem by itself? No. It's more likely
It will help.
a journey, but it will all help. All the little pieces help. And yeah, that's it for me. So
Yeah, that was a lot.
we have a lot of great episodes we recorded in this area. If you want to dig deeper into the self-care, the healthy boundaries, the gut function, the sleep, we've covered all these topics because all of these topics are important to function well, no matter if it's ADHD, stressed, overwhelmed, going through some traumatic events, miscarriages, or just
Grief,
changes
hormones.
in life and transitions, and transforming yourself to your next level. So watch those other episodes, and thank you for watching all the way to the end.